Thanks everyone for joining. We have a lot of things to talk about, especially as it relates to Avalanche, TrustSwap, and Verso. And I think this discussion is primarily revolving around the title here, which is Launching the Startups of the Future on Avalanche, why we believe that these organizations like Verso are choosing platforms, especially scalable ones like Avalanche, and we'll start talking about what the current state of the world looks like, what are the different options that these blockchain startups and projects have to choose from, and why we feel like Avalanche is the most advantageous. And then I think another interesting perspective from more on the Ivan and Gregor side, we'll definitely hear from them as people who have and organizations that have actually experienced the Avalanche ecosystem firsthand. And so before we get going on the actual discussion, would love to just quickly make a round of intros and can go around in circles here. John, if you would like to kick us off with your background.
Hey guys, welcome everyone. I'm John, president of Ava Labs. Really excited to be here and talk about how a lot of good projects and startups are now looking at Avalanche as a source of not just potentially funding, but also a source for help in terms of getting their marketing, community build, BD, even tech integration off the ground.
Thanks, John. Ivan, if you want to go next.
Sure. Yeah, my name is Ivan. As you mentioned, I'm currently COO of TrustSwap, responsible for the day-to-day operations, for the strategic partnerships, for ecosystem development and incubator program itself. And we're definitely very excited to see that projects like Verso are launching on Avalanche, and currently with the current setup of the gas fees, which is just insane. And I'm sure that we'll come back to the topic on a later stage. What are the main disadvantages of Ethereum? We are pushing quite a lot of projects to consider launching on Avalanche instead of Ethereum.
Thanks, Ivan. Gun, if you want to go next.
Hi, everyone. My name is Gun, or Emin Gunsur. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a nerdy professor from Cornell University. I've been in the space for a very long time, and by that, I mean like 2002. I was doing this before Satoshi was doing it. I implemented the world's first proof of work currency back then. He came in with a brilliant consensus protocol that improved on all of that, of course. And then, later on, Team Rocket Paper came out, and Avalanche is out now with an even better consensus protocol and even more scalable and a much more visionary system. And so here I am, delighted to be here with such a great crowd.
Thanks, Gun. Lastly, Gregor.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Jay. Hi, everybody. Gregor here, CEO of Verso. I'm also the co-founder of Wallet Engine, which provides consumer apps with in-app wallets for fiat money. So I'm coming from a traditional regulated e-money space and really found a passion around microfinance when I built the first social payments app in the Philippines. That was back in 2014. Really excited to be here and to chat about the experience we had so far with launching Verso on Avalanche, and hopefully take some questions and answers, anything you guys have on your mind. Thanks for the invite, Jay, and look forward to having a good chat.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone, for the intros. We'll quickly set the stage here for what has happened up to date in terms of the relationship between Avalanche, TrustSwap, and Verso, and then I think we can start kind of going around and talking about the various components and some of the things that we all are thinking about that we'd love to share with this crowd. And so Gregor and Ivan, feel free to chime in once I kind of set the stage with any other details that you want to add. So just setting the stage here, TrustSwap and Avalanche, we started the integration off a few months ago, and TrustSwap is one of the leading launch pads that is existing on a bunch of different leading blockchain platforms. And Ivan and his team connected with us saying, hey, we are looking for a much more scalable solution and are trying to figure out how to solve kind of the scalability issues that they're having from the token sale perspective. And they also happen to have a client, Gregor in this case, and his team as Verso Finance, trying to figure out a good and efficient way to launch their project and make sure that they have end-to-end support, both on the BD and marketing side, but also on the technical side as well. And so as Avalanche and a platform where you could easily launch these types of tokens at low cost, we came into the relationship and also then provided our backgrounds. Most of the team has extensive background in crypto, also extensive background in the traditional finance and traditional worlds. And so we're trying to help as best as possible to run with the timeline. And for the audience's context, what we ended up doing is we, I think, connected in the beginning of April, and the token sale date, and we actually spoke about this recently, was the 25th. And so with the beginning of April and the 25th in the horizon, we only really had 2 or 3 weeks to come together with a full end-to-end pre-launch strategy. This includes how we were going to launch the token, how we were going to then provide secondary markets for it right at launch, also, of course, the marketing plan. And I remember we were in a very jam-packed Zoom trying to figure this all out, including Gregor and Ivan. And so that's kind of the base level details, at least from the operation side. Ivan and Gregor, not sure if you want to quickly add in terms of the foundational story here.
Yeah, sure. Let me continue. I really like the support which we received from Avalanche. It basically it exceeded all our expectations, and we're very happy about this partnership. And when Gregor first came to us with this brilliant idea of how he wants to integrate microfinance in all the different apps and wants to integrate DeFi to all the different apps like Twitch. I mean, for me in the beginning, it was like, microfinance and Ethereum just doesn't work. You cannot spend $50 on a gas fee and making a small transaction of $20. So we were actually searching for alternatives, and then we already started. We were already in discussion with Avalanche in how we can solve some of the other problems, and then we see it with each and every startup which are like fundraising, and they want to get as many users as possible. And the average ticket size is around $300 to $500, sometimes around $1,000. So depending on the amount of the fundraising which the startup is doing. But also then, like we just experienced it with our previous launch, which was 2 days ago, people had to spend like around $100 for just one transfer, and if they don't have USDT or USDC on the chain, they have to like withdraw from an exchange to their wallet and then to send it forward. So we're talking about $200 of worth of gas fees for just the transaction. I mean, we were making fun that Western Union would be much cheaper, but in the end, it is important to have an alternative, and Avalanche is a really good alternative. And I don't see a reason why a project should not consider listing on Avalanche instead of Ethereum in the current situation. And we're pushing all the startups currently to accept USDT on Avalanche and to consider launching at least part of their tokens on the Avalanche chain themselves.
Yeah, just I can only double down and second to what Ivan has just said. I mean, for us, having built a startup in the non-crypto space, we kind of knew what we want to do, what we were looking for. But we also knew that we can't pull this off ourselves, and definitely doesn't make sense to reinvent the wheel from scratch if there are experts in the space who really know how to do these things. I mean, obviously the cost side on the transaction fees is one aspect, but then for us it's the long term. It's like for what we want to build when it comes to microfinance, we need the right partners from the get-go. We need the right the right collaborations in the industry, and that's, I guess, the same everywhere, whether it's crypto or non-crypto. It's about the network. It's about who works with whom. It's about the collaboration that helps, companies and projects grow together.
Awesome. Thanks guys for adding
this
the
point.
detail.
Actually, if you don't mind, Jay, I will jump in. This
Go
point
ahead.
is actually amplified even more as these projects become more mature. and especially on the technology transaction cost side. And what I mean by that is obviously, TrustSwap and Verso are relatively new and earlier stage, great potential companies. We've had companies that are 4 or 5 years out, already been funded in many different ways, and now they want to do a Reg A plus regulated offering. And the rules have just changed now, so you can do $75 million in that raise. And now we're talking about hundreds of thousands of individuals coming to raise money through a Reg A plus through this project. And if they were to do hundreds of thousands of minting of these tokens and then exchanging it on Ethereum, they did the math. It would literally cost them $15 million to do it that way. And so we're talking to the same people where we can literally cut that by over 90%. And if they're going to spend $15 million on Ethereum, they might as well just go do a regular IPO, because after you pay Goldman and pay all these banks and intermediaries, you're going to end up paying $15 million anyway. So this point about a better mechanism because of the great technology Gun and the team have built, it only gets amplified as each one of these companies grow.
Yeah, exactly. I think we talk about those pain points all the time, and I think John's definitely at the front lines of all of this action, and is also very much excited to share some of the upcoming things later in the discussion. So I want to quickly pull out some of the topics that Gregor and Ivan, you touched on, John was a little bit as well, talking about the scalability and how people can be identifying usable platforms, and how best or why is scalability such a huge issue, and what's kind of the state of the world. And maybe Gun can kind of touch on what he's seeing on the Ethereum side, what's actually happening within the network. One of the things that a lot of people might not know, especially because they're not necessarily DeFi users, are kind of the intricacies of that world, and how does that get framed against a platform like Avalanche?
Sure. So very quickly, let me say two things. I want to talk about the general space of scalability and consensus protocols, and exactly the limits of scale. And the other thing I want to touch upon is the current situation. Like why are things the way they are, and why do we expect Avalanche to be not limited by but to not be plagued by the exact same problems that plague Ethereum today. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about my favorite topic and expertise area, which is consensus protocols. There are only 3 major families of consensus protocols. There are these protocols that we call classical protocols. They have existed for about 45 years. So the problem was identified, the consensus problem was identified 45 years ago. The first protocols started coming out shortly after that. They were terrible protocols. They got improved and got better and got better and got better. And so there are many hundreds of these protocols. The very best one of them was designed by one of my students and a co-founder at Ava Labs. His name is Mao Van Ted Yin. I sent him to the West Coast for a summer. He worked on a protocol called Hot Stuff, and that protocol is currently being used by Facebook's Libra effort, which just got rebranded. So there is a lineage of work there, and they all work by essentially doing the same thing, which is select some number of representatives, and then a sufficient quorum of representatives have to agree that the transaction is valid. And when everybody knows that that has happened, then the transaction is finalized. That's the general format of these protocols. These protocols do not scale. They cannot scale. All of these approaches necessarily come down to selecting a small number of representatives. And that's just a bad way of doing things. These systems can't be open. And the funny thing is, when Satoshi came along in 2009, he knew about these protocols. These protocols existed back then as well, before Ted's work, but they were there. There was like 30-something years of it. And when Satoshi came along, he said, look, these things are necessarily closed. These things are necessarily fragile. They don't lend themselves to open, robust systems. So he then came up with his own protocol, which we understand to be much more robust, much more open. And that, of course, opened up a new era. The problems with Bitcoin are also evident. It doesn't scale because and it consumes a lot of resources. It leaks a lot of value out of the system. The mining mechanism that's at the root of proof of work was the best thing we knew until a few years ago, and but unfortunately doesn't lend itself to more than dozens of transactions per second. So in comes the Avalanche protocol, and it works differently. It's a protocol where not everybody has to talk to everybody else. Not everybody has to have heard from everybody else. There is no representative selection. So that's how it scales. It is the only protocol out there that's actually using a different mechanism. Now, the funny thing is, of course, we're living through an era where the limitations of proof of work are becoming apparent to just about everybody. And those people are then trying to switch to proof of stake protocols, by which they mean a classical proof of stake protocol. And Avalanche is also a proof of stake protocol, but it's not a classical protocol. That's why it scales. It has a different communication pattern. Different numbers of bits are being sent. Different meanings are attached to those bits. And therefore, the entire operation is fundamentally more efficient than what everybody else has to do. ETH2, when it comes along, will be a classical protocol. Polkadot, classical. Everybody else, classical. Avalanche is the only one of its kind, and that's why it's a breakthrough. So I want everybody to understand that there's a fundamentally different thing going on under the covers here. So it's not an accident. It's not because Avalanche is early. It's not because the chain has not seen much use yet, et cetera, et cetera. Well, those are true too. This chain has not seen much use. We don't have the history of Bitcoin. We don't have the history of Ethereum. That's also true. That also helps us. But there is also a far more fundamental breakthrough here. And so that's the very quick overview of 45 years of research. So if you're interested in this area, there's a lot more reading and exciting discussions to be had, but I don't want to get too technical here. So the second thing I want to talk about is what the heck is happening on Ethereum? Why the heck are the fees so high? And there's a very simple answer to this. Ethereum today is a network for robots. Ethereum today is dominated by these automated market makers. And what's an automated market maker? It's like a piece of code that offers a price. And if you don't do anything, if you just sit there, that price becomes stale. And as the coin prices fluctuate, that price becomes stale, and it becomes an opportunity for somebody to buy one of the two coins in a liquidity pool at a much cheaper price. So what happens? Well, then every 15 seconds, there's somebody doing arbitrage, pushing in transactions, consuming space on the chain, and trying to take advantage of that arbitrage opportunity. And in doing so, or to do so, they have to spend some effort, and they have to consume some space, which means that they have to bid for space, and the fees start going up. If the amount of fluctuation in prices is high enough, then you have to have a correspondingly large number of AMM transactions on Ethereum. So Uniswap is one of the main reasons why this is happening. And of course, the Uniswap related traffic is one of the main reasons that this is happening. So as you have more volatility in prices, then the Ethereum gas fees start going through the roof. And there is essentially, like, humans like you, me, and everybody else we know, we are being priced out because these robots are coming in trying to take advantage of these arbitrage opportunities. And let me just finish up by saying, why shouldn't this affect Avalanche as well? Well, of course it's going to affect Avalanche as well. But Avalanche has so much more capacity that it can absorb the amount of traffic induced by the amount of volatility in coin prices and leave room for humans like all of us. So that's why I'm so excited about it. It's not just a network for bots. It's a network for regular people. Anyhow, that's my 2-minute spiel on my area, what happened in it, and what's happening with Ethereum and why Avalanche is different.
Thanks, Gun. I think those details are really important, especially for people that don't necessarily use, again, like I mentioned before, the applications that live on any of these smart contracts platforms. And I think maybe John, you touched on this a little bit earlier. We'd love to hear your thoughts on where you think the ecosystem is trending. Gun also mentioned how Avalanche is built to scale. That is a very, very important value proposition, especially for these applications. So in terms of your current experience and what you're seeing and also what you're hearing, I think is more important. where do you think this is going? What kind of applications are you seeing? And what could Ava Labs and Avalanche as an ecosystem offer these new crypto startups?
So Avalanche's ecosystem is literally at a great point because it's inflecting as we speak. We count applications on top of the Avalanche ecosystem based on live stuff. Other chains, they actually cheat a little bit and they consider things being in implementation, part of the number of dApps on their chain. So with that, we are literally over 50 live projects. And the beauty of these projects is that all the Lego pieces that allow more projects to come in are now being formed. You have as TrustSwap here is and Avalanche is, that is basically the primary issuance vehicle, if you will. We have fantastic AMMs led by Pangolin, and that's a great secondary trading vehicle. We've got Banky on the lending side and more lending dApps coming. And then all the pieces of those Legos are actually coming through their fruition. And then if you want to measure things like adoption and value and usage growth, the amazing thing is you have to look at it every single day because all of those metrics are growing 20% a day. So every day, the network effect happens. It becomes more and more valuable, and we will get more and more great players like Verso and TrustSwap continue to grow our ecosystem.
Thanks, John. And as you cover perhaps a very Avalanche specific point of view, there's clearly a lot of demand that's coming into the ecosystem and something that we've been working hard for the last few years on. Wondering maybe, Ivan, you could touch on a little bit on what you're seeing on your side since you have also exposure from other smart contract chains, perhaps even highlighting some of the pain points, opportunities, and then how you see Avalanche being a player within TrustSwap's future on the strategy side.
Yeah, sure. I mean, as I mentioned before, like the biggest pain point is are the gas fees, basically. I mean, our startups which are launching are early stage startups, so obviously they don't need to pay $15 million for a token transaction, but our startups, they pay around $100,000 just to distribute the tokens. And for a startup that is raising like $2 million, 100,000 is quite a lot. So it's 5% of their total fund total amount raised. And if you take it in consideration, I mean, we also see quite a lot of like dissatisfaction from the community itself, that they're saying like, look, why should I spend $200 on gas fees to just get a $300 tickets? So that's one of the definitely biggest pain points which we see in the space. And like this is just the token distribution. When we're talking about micropayments, for sure, we need faster solutions. And also, we're talking about stable coins. That's also like what you see there. I mean, if you go to a supermarket that you want to pay with the stable coins, so literally as Gun said, like most of the use cases currently on Ethereum do not make any sense. They are just for speculation and just for arbitrage trading. Like once again, to come back to the topic of stable coins, if you want to go to the supermarket and you want to pay for like I don't know, so, a Coke or like some bread or whatever, and you need to pay $50, $100, and wait 5 minutes before your transaction gets through, it's definitely not an everyday use, and also not really for real people and for real use cases. So we're definitely looking for alternatives. And the beauty of Avalanche is that it is compatible with the Ethereum virtual machine. So you just have to swap to add your MetaMask to the Avalanche chain, and everything works the same. So people know how to use it. It's super simple. If you compare it to other chains which are solving the same problems, they're either way too centralized. So it's basically it's not really a blockchain solution, if you ask me. It's more a database, which is hosted by some of the big exchanges or some of other communities. So like Avalanche is really decentralized, and you have basically the two pluses of both worlds. So people know how to use it. People know how to use it on MetaMask. People know how to swap tokens, to add tokens. So it uses the same usability, and on the other hand, it's much more decentralized. And I think those two efforts are very a very big advantage for projects to use Avalanche. And I mean, one thing which I also want to add on Gun's basically message is, yes, I mean, Avalanche is pretty new, and there were some roadblocks for Verso in the sense of listing on exchanges, in the sense of listing on other dexes. But with our effort together with Avalanche, building up this ecosystem, it it is opening up a lot of doors. I mean, now we see exchanges like Gate.io already compatible with C-Chain. We see dexes like SushiSwap also compatible with C-Chain. We're working together with SushiSwap to integrate Verso as one of the first startups on the Bento Box to farm sushi on the Avalanche chain. So we see all those use cases on the ecosystem grow, and I would say that in latest 1 or 2 months, when the ecosystem is even growing even faster, there is no reason for a startup to not consider listing on Avalanche and putting their tokens there. And we recently now we're starting a new project, and we made a survey and asked the people um, uh, on which chain would you like this project to launch. And then we had the survey. Avalanche is in the top 3, and Ethereum only has 50%. Only 50% of the people which are investing into this project are wishing that the project is launching on Ethereum. And I think this number will decrease even further if Ethereum 2.0 will not launch. And yeah, I mean, honestly speaking, I don't see it launching in the next couple of months. So definitely there is a very, very big need of protocols like Avalanche for our projects.
Thanks, Ivan. And I think your point about the real world use case may be a little bit more of an edge case now, but something that is quickly coming into reality. I think what that reminds me of for me is with Verso's use case. I think micropayments, it comes naturally to not have to try and pay really prohibitive transaction costs, and also just because you're dealing with micropayments, you naturally need as much throughput and processing power as possible. So would really love to switch over to Gregor here. Maybe he can give a quick overview of what Verso is trying to accomplish, maybe some of the challenges that we were trying to solve early on, especially with the April anecdote, and anything else that might come to mind when it comes to future plans, especially with TrustSwap and Avalanche.
Yeah, great. Let me give a brief introduction about Verso first and what we focus on, and then maybe also share a few thoughts on why we are so passionate about microfinance and why it is actually about much more than just paying in a supermarket or a $1 e-commerce transaction. But to take a step back, or maybe kind of a 35,000 foot view. In the world today, we have around 3,000 e-wallets with fiat money. So fiat stored value in e-wallets, regulated, and they serve billions of people. Most of them, they live in frontier and emerging markets. These mobile wallets, they were really great because it gave basically people access to digital payments. One of the first ones was, I think it was M-Pesa in Kenya. But the problem is, at the same time, it's actually two problems. Number one, 99% of these e-wallets today, they are not interoperable. So what that means in the practical life of people, if you again take, let's say, a farmer in Africa, he needs to carry 3 phones with him because each phone has a different SIM card and each e-wallet is tied to a different SIM card, so from 3 different telco providers. And if he wants to, receive money from a customer that has 1 SIM card from 1 provider, then he needs to pull out the corresponding phone. So this person may have an average, combined balance of $50 split across 3 different wallets and can't buy anything for $50. That's number 1. Number 2, a lot of microfinance products like small loans, instant loans, short-term insurance products, like a 3-day travel insurance if you want to visit family in the Philippines, as an example, or savings and yield-generating products. Some of them have become available. They're super exciting business opportunities, but the unit economics do not make any sense. You need to integrate with these regulated wallets. It is complicated. There is a lot of regulatory aspects to consider. And at the end of the day, even if you have a system that is able to, to process small value transfers, the overhead associated with it just doesn't make any sense. So that's essentially what Verso is solving. So Verso is a B2B marketplace for microfinance products. And in that sense, also a distribution network. It connects microfinance products, validates these products on the network in terms of compliance, in terms of other standards, and makes them available to regulated e-wallets so they can provide additional products to their existing users. And as we know in the whole blockchain world, trust is a big plus of blockchains. Another element where we really see a massive adoption potential is when it comes to convenience. Nobody wants to figure out how to get a product for like $50, even if it's a loan product. If you have to download a new app, if you have to figure out your way around, the blockchain world for the average person on the street, that's just not realistic. So that's what we're trying to solve with Verso, and also with our early partnership with Wallet Engine and then other e-wallets that we connect to the Verso platform. The second point on microfinance in general, it's literally like, I think there is a nice comparison that I would like to draw to the days of 1990, where we had telcos where you could send text messages, and every text message, would cost some money. I think it was like 10 cents or 20 cents or whatever it was back then. And what you see in the telco world is that you need systems that can scale. Systems that can scale to peaks, because everybody would send a New Year's message on December 31st to say Happy New Year. And everybody is being charged 10 cents at that point in time. And then these systems, they have very different throughput on January 3rd and 4th. And these extremes is a very important component when it comes to microfinance, because it needs to be scalable, and it needs to be scalable at very specific points in time. And most of the traditional systems cannot do that, especially not in the banking and in the financial world.
And with Verso, Gregor, I think we are clearly past the token launch part. Wondering if you could maybe touch a little bit on what's to come for Verso, if even broadly is totally fine.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a very, very ambitious timeline. So I'll start what the target is by the end of this year. By the end of this year, we will have one DeFi product distributed through Verso straight to a regulated e-wallet. So that will be available by the end of the year. And that will come through the partnership as well with Wallet Engine. So basically today we have the partnerships in place. We've even identified early adopters, apps that will participate in this already. And the first products will now be, we just started to actually, build out the smart contracts and define the smart contracts and all that for the first products, now coming onto the platform, which will be a DeFi product. We also have other products in mind. Some of them are CeFi or even hybrid products, but they are a little bit later on the roadmap.
Awesome. Yeah, I think everyone here is probably very excited for the developments on the Verso side. quick plug here for you, Gregor, if you want to give the website perhaps just for anyone to check out and learn more about Verso.
Yes, so the website is www.verso.finance, and all the other information is on there as well.
Awesome. There it is. And maybe switching back to John for a second. John, if you want to give your preview of what's to come on Avalanche, how we're going to continue to grow projects like Verso and also TrustSwap, anything that you could possibly share from your perspective would be great.
Absolutely. Let me start by asking a question to Gregor and Ivan. How many people are at your respective firms?
So I'll start because we are definitely lesser than on Ivan's side. We are right now 6 people for Verso, and we are a little bit over 15 on Wallet Engine.
Yeah, and on our side, we're a little bit more than 30 people.
Wow, that's great. That's actually more than I realized. But in terms of what's more to come, it's great to hear your stories, both of yours, because I think there's going to be great technology improvements that Gun can talk about later. But what I'm hearing from other projects that are coming to us is that because they're under 10 people, under 15 people, Ivan, yours is obviously a little bit bigger, they really don't have the business structure, and they don't have the experience to call it professionalize things from end to end. And they need help in understanding how to create community, how to do social better, how to reach out to partners. Sometimes it's simple as like, can you guys help us get to the front of the queue for a security audit? So all of these things that we are able to help is part of the reason why more and more projects are coming to the Avalanche blockchain. And we are building our team at Ava Labs in order to be the service provider for more projects on Avalanche. And I think it'll get better and better every single day. And as the technology has upgrades, it'll just amplify both sides, the business as well as the tech side.
I want to add one more thing to what John said. So when I look around for different blockchains, or when I look at different platforms as potential targets for a new endeavor, the most important thing that I would look for is the network. And by that, I don't mean the geeky stuff I talked about a little while ago. I mean the network as a function of the number, not just number of nodes and hardware and software and so forth, but the actual people involved. And in everything I did in the blockchain space in the last whatever years, I always looked at it from this perspective. Does this network take me closer to my goals? Is this a fun group of people to hang out with? Is this a group of people that can provide support for me? Is this a group of people that gives me the reach I need? And I am so proud, so proud. Yeah, I am proud of the technology. It's really cool stuff. But I am way more proud of the people who are essentially like that you see, as underneath others in the room. So the people that we have gathered around the Avalanche network. We've done some incredibly successful projects in the just 6 months that we've been around. I was around for the first, the first 2 years of the Ethereum launch, and there was nothing. It was nowhere near the level of excitement that we see on Avalanche right now. Sure, that's an unfair comparison. Blah blah blah. I don't want to imply anything negative about Ethereum there, but the network, the human capital that we built is the main thing that I'm really proud of. So being part of the Avalanche network, at least in my view, gives access to a very science-driven, very tech-driven, and very, happy, nice community. And that, I think, in turn brings a lot of value. It's not a set of crazy maximalists, telling you to hold your coins forever. It's not a set of crazy other kinds of maximalists who say, well, this one chain or this one technology will win no matter what. It's a bunch of technologically driven people who are trying to get things done, and they have the wherewithal to build something. Like take Pangolin. It went from 0 to about $350 million worth of value inside in 2 months. So we can do amazing things overnight. Take whatever that thing was that I changed my avatar into, the little like seals, crypto seals.
Crypto seals.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Overnight, it became a big thing. So both big and small projects can flourish on top of this platform, and that's thanks to everybody here. So that's really what I'm proud of.
Exactly. I can only add to this. I mean, we got incredible support from the Avalanche team, not only on marketing but on the tech side, etc. And yeah, I mean, we are supporting this ecosystem. We're looking forward to work together. And whenever we see that a project is interested to launch on Avalanche, we're happy to connect them with you guys. And literally, I mean, with other like blockchains, just getting on a call with 2-3 core developers to really talk about your problems and things like that. That's just not possible with most of the other blockchains, and it's just an incredible added value. And I think that Gregor can confirm that. And on the other side, what we are doing with our incubator is that we're supporting the projects also from an end-to-end in how to do things proper together with the Avalanche team, how to do the marketing, how to do like the token economics, etc. And I mean, we saw that the channels from Verso, they grew within like less than 2 weeks from 0 to more than 5,000 followers, and they're still growing on a day-by-day basis. So I think what we together with Avalanche and TrustSwap can offer startups, I think that's just incredible, has an incredible value.
Yeah, I mean, just to add to that, it's not that I have done a number of crypto projects to compare things to, but from what I hear and know, like I would never have believed that we can pull this off actually in 4 to 5 weeks time. It was incredible, and that was only possible through the collaboration and the share of knowledge and the advice that we got from everyone involved, Avalanche and TrustSwap teams. And I think maybe to your point quickly earlier, John, I mean, even, if we had, I think if we had 20 people on our team today, we would still have struggled. Because like, at least for me, it was such a new world all of a sudden, with so many different rules. Before, like building startups in non-crypto world, I wasn't dealing with scammers all of a sudden. So there is so many other facets to it that really make advice of people who know the details and have the experience very, very valuable.
Well, thank you, Gregor. I think that's a great point. We have at Ava Labs people who understand the crypto culture. There are people who understand traditional financial culture, people obviously who are academics and understand technology deeply. But even more importantly, we have good connects to those three and able to communicate easily.
Yeah, and one thing which I would like to add on the Avalanche ecosystem, which I found like really, really incredible after launching our first project on Avalanche, is that you see that all the companies which are in the space, they all work together. I mean, they try to support each other. For example, we listed Verso and Pangolin, and they were really, really supportive in tweeting about Verso, also like in supporting us coming to the farming pool. So Verso will be soon be part of the PNG farming pool. So this is something which like try to approach Uniswap, for example. They like probably will not even get an answer. So like you feel that the people are like trying to help each other in the ecosystem, which is incredible.
And just a quick domain plug here for those that don't use Pangolin. It's pangolin.exchange. I know we've been talking about it a lot. It is an automated market making dApp that is entirely community owned when it comes to the token distribution there. Before we go into last Q&A section of this discussion, want to quickly revert back to Gun here if he wants to quickly go over some of the exciting things that's coming up on the Avalanche platform and what people can be expecting.
Yeah, there's a lot happening. So the funny thing is, I want to make sure that people understand that I am not the definitive source of what's happening on the platform. If anything, I'm a trailing source. I discover things quite often after the fact, and it's impossible now for me to follow what's going on. And so I just want to mention that. But so at the very lowest level, there are a whole lot of exciting technological improvements that the core team is proposing. And so one of them is this thing called Apricot. And Apricot is well through, I guess, the second phase, or it's we were going to make one big change, or we were going to propose Apricot as one big improvement. We decided that that would be too disruptive and a little bit dangerous, so we broke it up into smaller pieces. And so we are about to get to the end of the Apricot rollout. When that's completed, we're going to have dynamic fees on the network, and that's going to allow fees to drop down even lower than they are. And in times of high stress, the fees will also be able to spike up. And so that's good, because if you don't have that mechanism, then instead what you have are lost transactions and a bad user experience during times of high stress. So that's sort of what is in store. When the Apricot rollout is complete, it's going to create the groundwork necessary for us to add governance to the protocol. This is something that I'm very much looking forward to. So key economic parameters in the protocol should be up for governance by the network itself, and those technical changes are in the works, and I'm really excited about them. So there's a lot of other stuff happening, and I am not at all the definitive source. As I said, there are new DEXs coming along, DEXs of the kind that nobody has seen before, not DEXs that take Uniswap version 2 into version 3, change everything and make it even more expensive, but fundamentally different approaches to how trades ought to take place. This is technology that Wall Street does not have. And this part really gives me so much pleasure. So let me just say a few words about it. So I've been in this space for a long time, and I've observed the following pattern. People in crypto come up with some very cool idea, and they go to the regulators, and they say, oh, hey, regulators, we've got this idea, that idea, let's say the ETF or whatever. And the regulators always say, no, that's not good. And one of the main things that they cite is, your exchanges are unregulated, they don't provide good guarantees. Well, you know what? If I look at Wall Street exchanges, yeah, they're regulated, but they also don't provide great guarantees. The only way that they provide the little bit of good service that they do is by post-facto auditing. So they do what they do, somebody comes in, audits what's happening, and then every 6 months or so there's a minor problem. And every 5 years or so, there's a major problem. You find collusion, you find front running. In fact, front running is part of their business model now. It's called HFT. You find people who are unable to keep track of how many assets are outstanding for a given stock. So this happened with the Dole company, and they had issued 38 million shares, and there were 53 million shares floating around on Wall Street. So the most basic stuff Wall Street can't do. And in crypto, we have the tools, we have the technology, or at least the technological foundations necessary to build a much better thing than what Wall Street's got. So we can eat their lunch. And we are going to come out with, on the Avalanche platform, I know there are projects in the works to come out with better stuff than what Wall Street's got. This is really exciting to me. And I can go on. There are many other Lego pieces in DeFi that I've heard of from various different parties that are coming along. And so these things all play together, as you all well know. And it's, of course, there are stable coins coming up. There are a bunch of exchange listings and exchange support coming in. So I'm really excited about the future to come.